The Galactic Council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive crystalline structure that had witnessed 10,000 years of interstellar diplomacy. Today, it would witness something far more consequential, though none of the assembled delegates knew it. Yet Councillor Vexthar's chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber's ambient light as he manipulated the holographic display with his foremost appendages. The image rotated slowly, a blue-green world, third from its star, utterly unremarkable save for one detail. Location? Location, Vexthar clicked, his translator rendering the phrase in standard galactic. This primitive world, Earth as its inhabitants call it, sits at the intersection of three major trade routes. The Confederation of Advanced Species cannot allow such strategic real estate to remain in the hands of them. The hologram shifted, displaying images of humanity. Bipedal mammals, soft-skinned and vulnerable. The gallery of assembled species, crystalline gen, plasma-based corvish. The towering Bracan observed with varying degrees of interest and disdain. They still wage wars upon themselves, continued a gen representative, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns of disgust. Tribal conflicts over resources, ideology, invisible boundaries. They fragment themselves into nearly 200 separate governance structures. Primitive nuclear fission weapons, added a Bracan admiral, his 4 eyes reviewing tactical data. Chemical propellants for spaceflight. They've barely touched their own moon. By our standards, they're still in their technological infancy. Vexithar gestured to their weapons analysis. Their most powerful weapons would barely scratch our shield plating. Their fastest vessels would take decades to reach even their nearest planetary neighbor using conventional drives. Esteemed Council, this isn't a question of if we should annex Earth. It's a question of how quickly we can process the paperwork. Laughter rippled through the chamber, some melodious, some grinding, some electromagnetic. I propose peaceful annexation, Vexthar announced. We offer them the standard package. Membership in the Confederation, access to our technology, protection from hostile species. In exchange, they cede territorial rights to their system and accept our oversight of their development. And if they refuse? Asked the Corvesh ambassador, her plasma form pulsing with curiosity. Vexithar's mandibles clacked in what his species considered a smile. Then we proceed with forceful pacification. Either way, in 30 days, Earth becomes a Confederation protectorate. All in favor? The vote was unanimous. 27 light-years away, in a corner office of the United Nations headquarters in New York, Secretary General Maria Santos watched the night sky through her window. Somewhere up there, faster than light signals were already racing toward Earth. Her secure phone buzzed. A single word on the screen. Contact. Maria closed her eyes and took a breath that felt like it carried the weight of 8 billion souls. 40 years. 40 years of preparation, of secrets, of carefully cultivated appearances. It was finally happening. Activate protocol quiet, she whispered. The broadcast came at 0300 GMT, simultaneously received by every communication system on Earth. Televisions turned themselves on. Radios crackled to life. Phones buzzed with impossible signals. The message was brief, translated into every human language simultaneously. People of Earth. We are the Confederation of Advanced Species. Your world has been selected for integration into galactic civilization. You have 30 days to prepare for transition. Resistance is illogical. Your cooperation ensures peaceful evolution. Conflict ensures pacification. Choose wisely. The transmission included holographic images of the Council, their vast fleets, their technological superiority. It was designed to inspire awe and acceptance. Instead, it triggered the most coordinated human response in history. Within minutes, emergency sessions convened in every major capital. The UN Security Council met in person for the first time in 2 decades, all members arriving within the hour. NATO command centers went to high alert. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization activated defense protocols. Even nations technically at odds with each other began secure communications on encrypted channels that had been established for exactly this scenario. To any alien observer, it would look like chaos, nations scrambling, populations panicking, governments struggling to maintain order. It looked exactly like what the Confederation expected from a primitive species. It was perfect misdirection. 40 years earlier, Arecibo Observatory, Puerto Rico. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been 20 minutes from ending her shift when the signal came through. Not the wow signal, not cosmic background radiation, something else entirely. A burst transmission lasting 17 seconds containing mathematical proofs, star charts, and a warning in binary code. They watch. They judge. They come. Be ready. Be silent. The message had been sent by an unknown source from beyond Proxima Centauri. Its very existence proved three things. Aliens existed, they had faster-than-light communication, and at least one of them thought humanity needed a warning. Within 72 hours, Elena was in a bunker beneath Geneva, facing representatives from every major power on Earth. The crisis that brought them together had nothing to do with Earth politics. It had everything to do with survival. "We're not ready," said General Chen Wei of the People's Liberation Army. "If what this message implies is true, we're children playing with sticks while adults carry nuclear weapons." "Then we become adults," replied Admiral James Okonkwo of the Nigerian Space Command. "Fast, and we do it quietly." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Japan's foremost quantum physicist, adjusted her glasses. The message said, "Be silent. Whoever sent this knows the observers, these watchers, will judge us. If they think we're primitive, divided, harmless, they'll underestimate us." "You're proposing we pretend?" asked Maria Santos, then just a Brazilian diplomat. "While we actually prepare?" "Not pretend," Chen said slowly, a dangerous smile crossing his face. "We give them exactly what they expect to see. Nations squabbling over resources, wars over ideology, a divided, chaotic species too busy fighting itself to be a threat." He paused. "While underneath we unite completely." Thus began the quiet protocol. Present day, somewhere beneath the Gobi Desert, the bunker had no official name. It didn't exist on any map. Its construction had been hidden within a Chinese infrastructure project, built by international teams who thought they were working on separate, unrelated facilities. General Chen Wei, now 73 but still sharp as tungsten, stood before a holographic display that would have made the Galactic Council's technology look primitive. Around him, the real leaders of Earth's defense gathered, not politicians, though they played their roles well, but the military commanders, scientists, and engineers who had spent 4 decades preparing for this day. "Status report," Chen commanded. Admiral Okonkwo, his hair now silver, operated the display. "Lunar defense grid, 42 railgun installations operational. Mars garrison, hidden within failed colony infrastructure, 12,000 personnel fully armed. Asteroid belt platform, 67 weapon stations disguised as mining operations active. Orbital assets?" asked Dr. Tanaka, now the protocol's chief scientist. 2,416 satellites, reported a younger officer. Approximately 1,100 are actual communications and research platforms. The remaining 1,300 are weapons, kinetic kill vehicles, directed energy systems, EMP generators, and 64 nuclear-pumped X-ray laser platforms. The fleet? 12 stealth carriers holding position beyond Pluto's orbit. The Confederation scanned right past them. Our quantum stealth coding works perfectly. Each carrier holds 50 combat craft equipped with reverse-engineered quantum drives and plasma weaponry. Chen allowed himself a slight smile. "Reverse-engineered from what exactly?" The younger officer grinned. "From the 7 scout probes various alien species have sent to Earth over the past 38 years. They thought we didn't detect them. We detected, captured, and studied every single one. Humanity hadn't been completely silent. Small research teams had been sent to investigate Earth periodically, always using stealth technology. The quiet protocol had anticipated this. Every probe was tracked, intercepted far from Earth, studied, and its technology integrated into humanity's growing arsenal. The aliens thought they were observing primitives. They never realized the primitives were observing back and learning." 7 days later, Neptune's orbit counselor Vexithar stood on the bridge of the Confederation dreadnought Inevitable Compliance, watching the blue-green world grow larger on the view screen. His fleet, 200 vessels ranging from corvettes to battlecruisers, had made the journey in a leisurely fashion, allowing Earth plenty of time to observe their approach in despair. "Scan results?" He clicked. "Exactly as intelligence predicted," replied his tactical officer. "Approximately 2,000 satellites in orbit, all broadcasting identification signals. Primitive, several space stations, the largest they call the International Space Station. Civilian habitat, no weapons, a handful of moon bases, mostly automated mining, no significant military assets detected. And their response? Panic, mostly. Their information networks are flooded with speculation and fear. Several governments have requested communication, offering negotiation. Of course they have, Vexthar said with satisfaction. Fear makes even the most stubborn species reasonable. Inform them we will accept their delegation in 48 hours. Until then, we maintain position and allow their anxiety to ripen. What Vexthar couldn't see, what his sensors were specifically designed not to see, were the quantum-encrypted communications pulsing between Earth and dozens of asteroids that had slowly, imperceptibly changed their orbits over the past 7 days. What he couldn't hear was General Chen Wei's voice, transmitted on channels the Confederation didn't know existed. All stations, battle positions. They're exactly where we want them. Activate Protocol Quiet Phase 2, Awakening. What he couldn't imagine was that in 48 hours, his fleet wouldn't be accepting a delegation. It would be fighting for survival. Earth, UN Headquarters. Secretary General Maria Santos stood before the assembled nations, her speech broadcast worldwide. To the terrified populations of Earth, she spoke words of caution, of attempted diplomacy, of hope that reason would prevail. To the Confederation observers certainly monitoring the broadcast, she appeared as expected, a leader of a frightened species, trying desperately to avoid conflict with a superior force. But to those who knew the truth, who understood the careful word choices and subtle inflections, her speech contained encoded confirmations. Every asset was in place. Every soldier ready. Every weapon charged and targeted. Humanity had spent 40 years becoming what it needed to be. Not louder, not more obvious. Not broadcasting its strength to the cosmos like an adolescent species seeking validation. They had become patient, strategic, united in purpose while appearing divided in practice. They had weaponized patience itself, turning every day of preparation into another advantage, every seeming weakness into a trap. The Galactic Council had made a simple miscalculation. They had assumed that a species that fought among itself was weak. They had never considered that a species that had fought continuously for millennia might have learned something about warfare that peaceful civilizations had forgotten. They were about to learn the hardest lesson in galactic history. Never mistake preparation for weakness, silence for submission, or patience for peace. The countdown had begun. In 40 hours, the galaxy would discover what humanity had become in the silence before the storm. Hour 0. Mars Orbit Counselor. Vexthar's confidence had never wavered during the approach to Mars. His fleet maintained perfect formation, sensor arrays sweeping the space ahead with casual efficiency. The red planet loomed before them, marked on their charts with human installations, small domed habitats, automated mining facilities, the remnants of what humans optimistically called colonization efforts. Pathetic, really. Tactical, scan those surface installations, Vexthar ordered. I want to catalog everything before we... The sensor officer's crystalline form suddenly blazed with alarm colors. Counselor! Multiple mass readings, asteroids accelerating on intercept vectors. Asteroids don't accelerate, Vexthar snapped. Recalibrate the first kinetic round struck the shield of the cruiser dominant voice at 40% of light speed. The shield, designed to deflect energy weapons and slow-moving projectiles, might as well have been tissue paper. The tungsten carbide penetrator, magnetically accelerated through a 3-kilometer railgun buried in Martian regolith, punched through the cruiser's shields. Armor and fusion core in 0.3 seconds, the dominant voice became an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. Then, the rest of Mars opened fire. 60 installations. Across the Martian surface, installations that had registered as abandoned mining equipment and defunct habitat modules revealed themselves as weapons platforms. Railguns, missile batteries, and directed energy weapons that had been carefully camouflaged for decades spoke as one voice. The voice said, "No." In the first 17 seconds of engagement, Vexthar's fleet lost 43 vessels. Evasive action, he screamed, his translator barely keeping up with his panic-stricken clicks. "Return fire. All batteries return fire!" The Confederation vessels scattered, their formation dissolving into chaos. Plasma cannons swiveled toward Mars, charging for devastating salvos that would glass the planet's surface. They never fired. From the asteroid belt, traveling on trajectories that had been calculated months in advance, came the second wave. What human astronomers had cataloged as survey satellites and mining platforms revealed their true nature. Missiles, hundreds of them, each guided by quantum processors that made Confederation targeting systems look like abacuses. And these missiles weren't alone. Contacts. 73 artificial structures in the asteroid belt. The tactical officer shrieked, "They're not asteroids, they're weapons platforms." Vexthar's world had inverted. Hunters had become prey. The primitive species was supposed to cower, not counterattack. This wasn't possible. This wasn't... A proximity alarm screamed as 3 quantum-guided missiles punched through his flagship's point defense. The inevitable compliance shuddered as explosions rippled through its engineering section. "Damage report," Vexthar demanded. "Aft shields down to 30%. Reactor 2 is offline. We have hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. In less than 2 minutes, the Confederation had lost 30% of its fleet strength. The invasion had become a massacre, and they were on the wrong side of it. Earth orbit, humanity's hidden shield. From his command station in the lunar facility Copernicus Prime, Admiral James Okonkwo watched the Mars engagement with grim satisfaction. The Confederation fleet was reacting exactly as predicted, scattering, confused, attempting to regroup. "Perfect. Activate Earth defense grid," he commanded. "Show them what they really missed." Across Earth's orbit, 2,000 satellites received simultaneous commands. 1,100 continued their peaceful missions: weather monitoring, communications, research. The other 1,300 transformed. Solar panels retracted. Civilian housing split open. Weapons that had been hidden in plain sight for 4 decades revealed themselves like flowers blooming in fast-forward kinetic kill vehicles armed with tungsten rods. Directed energy weapons powered by compact fusion reactors. EMP generators capable of frying electronics across entire cubic kilometers. And 64 special weapons, the crown jewels of Earth's defense, nuclear-pumped X-ray laser platforms, each capable of delivering terawatts of coherent energy in microsecond pulses. The Confederation vessels approaching. Earth orbit suddenly found themselves in a shooting gallery. "Target lock acquired," reported Commander Sarah Chen, General Chen Wei's granddaughter and Okonkwo's tactical officer. 347 enemy vessels within engagement range. "Fire at will," Okonkwo said quietly. "And Sarah, sir? Make it count. Our ancestors prepared this moment for 40 years. Let's not waste it." Space around Earth erupted in light. The directed energy weapons fired first, invisible beams of coherent photons that boiled armor and overloaded shields. The kinetic kill vehicles followed, their tungsten rods accelerating to velocities that turned physics into poetry and poetry into destruction. The X-ray laser platforms waited for the perfect moment when Confederation shields flickered and failed, then delivered pulses of radiation that cooked electronics and organic matter with democratic efficiency. A break-in destroyer, its 4-eyed captain still trying to comprehend what was happening, took a direct hit from 3 kinetic rounds simultaneously. The vessel didn't explode so much as disintegrate, torn apart by forces that treated advanced alloys like aluminum foil. A Gen corvette attempted to flee toward Jupiter. An X-ray laser platform tracked its trajectory with quantum-calculated precision and fired. The crystalline crew had exactly enough time to see their instruments fail before the radiation pulse arrived. The corvette continued on its trajectory, now a tomb ship carrying its irradiated crew into the outer solar system. "Earth orbital space secured," Sarah reported. "Enemy casualties. 73 vessels destroyed, 42 damaged. Our losses. 17 satellites destroyed, 34 damaged." "Acceptable," Okonkwo replied, then allowing himself the faintest smile. "Better than acceptable. General Chen would be proud, but they weren't finished, not even close." Beyond Pluto, the wolves revealed themselves. Captain Maria Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Force carrier. Quiet Dawn had been waiting in the dark for 8 days. Her ship, along with 11 others like it, had been positioned beyond Pluto's orbit for 3 months, waiting for exactly this moment. The Confederation fleet had scanned right past them. Quantum stealth coding, a technology reverse-engineered from captured alien probes, rendered the carriers effectively invisible to conventional sensors. The aliens had been so confident in their technological superiority that they'd never considered someone might be using their own tech against them. "Ma'am, Mars and Earth engagements are in progress," reported her XO. Commander James Toure. "Confederation fleet is in disarray." "Perfect timing," Maria said. "Launch all fighters. Target the command vessels first, cut off their coordination, then work your way through their support craft." "With pleasure, Captain." From the 12 carriers, 600 combat craft emerged from quantum stealth like predators materializing from shadows. Each fighter was piloted by humans who had trained their entire adult lives for this moment. Flying spacecraft that incorporated the best of human engineering and captured alien technology. They were faster than Confederation interceptors, more maneuverable than their bombers, and they were piloted by a species that had been fighting wars in 3-dimensional space for generations, even if most of that fighting had been in simulation. Preparing for this exact scenario, the Confederation fleet, already reeling from attacks at Mars and Earth, suddenly faced a third front from a direction they'd assumed was empty space. Commander Toure's fighter squadron targeted the heavy cruiser Subjugation's Promise. The aliens' defensive turrets tracked desperately, but the human craft moved in patterns that seemed to defy physics because they'd been designed by a species that had been dogfighting in atmosphere for over a century and had simply adapted those tactics to vacuum quantum torpedoes. Another gift from reverse-engineered technology slammed into the cruiser's engine section. The vessel tried to maneuver, but 3 more squadrons converged from different vectors, overwhelming its defenses with coordinated strikes that would have impressed any military historian from Sun Tzu to Clausewitz. The Subjugation's Promise broke apart, its pieces tumbling through space like the shattered dreams of Confederation superiority. All across the solar system, the pattern repeated. The invaders, who had arrived expecting submission, found themselves fighting for survival against an enemy that shouldn't exist, a primitive species that had somehow hidden centuries of military advancement behind a facade of division and weakness. The Galactic Council chamber 17 hours later, c. Emergency session had been called the moment fragmentary reports began arriving from Bexathar's fleet. Those reports had been disturbing. Now, 17 hours into the engagement, the full scope of the disaster was becoming clear. The holographic display in the council chamber showed the battlefield in brutal detail. Of the 200 vessels Vexthar had commanded, 73 had been destroyed. Another 92 were damaged, many critically. The remainder were in full retreat toward the edge of Earth's solar system, pursued by human fighters that seemed to materialize from nowhere. "How?" demanded the Gen ambassador, her crystalline form flickering with colors that indicated complete disbelief. "How is this possible? They were primitives. Divided, weak." "They lied," said a new voice. Every sensor in the chamber focused on the speaker, a Corvesh intelligence analyst whose plasma form pulsed with grim realization. "Explain," commanded the Council Prime. "We reviewed all our intelligence on humanity spanning the past 2,000 years, the analyst began. "Every observation, every probe, every scan. Do you know what we found?" Silence. Consistency. Perfect unnatural consistency. For 40 years, humanity has presented exactly the same face to the galaxy. Divided, primitive, chaotic. But that's statistically impossible. Species don't remain that consistent unless they're maintaining that appearance deliberately. The hologram shifted, showing historical human conflicts. They never stopped fighting. Wars, skirmishes, territorial disputes, it never ended. We interpreted this as weakness, as evidence they were too divided to pose a threat. The display changed again, showing recent analysis. But look at the pattern. Their conflicts never escalated to species extinction. They never used their most powerful weapons on each other after 1945. They established international bodies for cooperation while publicly maintaining nationalistic divisions. And their space program, always just successful enough to seem impressive to themselves, never advanced enough to seem threatening to us. You're saying they've been deceiving us for 4 decades? The Breakin' Admiral's four eyes widened in horror. "I'm saying they've been preparing," the analyst corrected. "While we watched them fight amongst themselves, they were actually testing weapon systems. While we dismissed their divided nations, they were actually coordinating in secret. While we assumed their slow space development meant technological limitation, they were actually building hidden infrastructure throughout their entire solar system." A counselor from the Pathek species, who had remained silent until now, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "I have reviewed the historical archives. There is precedent for this. Every sensor turned toward the Pathek. 12,000 years ago, our species attempted first contact with a world we thought primitive. They called themselves the Vrelnok. They appeared divided, their technology crude. We offered annexation." The Pathek paused. "They annihilated our contact fleet and pursued the survivors to our homeworld. It took us 3 centuries to negotiate peace." "What happened to the Vrelnok?" asked the Council Prime quietly. "They're still out there. We gave them a wide berth, and eventually they joined the galactic community as equals. They taught us a valuable lesson. Never assume a species that fights continuously is weak. Sometimes it means they're simply very, very good at fighting." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "Humans," the Gen ambassador said slowly, "have been at war with each other for their entire recorded history. Thousands of years of continuous warfare, countless conflicts, millions of battles. While we achieved peace and stagnated militarily," her crystalline form flickered with a color that indicated profound fear, "they never stopped innovating, never stopped testing, never stopped preparing. They weaponized everything," added the Corvesh analyst. "Even their conflicts with each other were ultimately practice for conflicts with us. Every technological advancement, every strategic innovation, every tactical doctrine, tested in real combat against opponents of equivalent intelligence. The hologram showed new data, recently acquired. Their history is filled with generals, strategists, military theorists spanning millennia, Sun Tzu, Clausewitz, Hannibal, Patton, names we dismissed as primitive warlords. But each generation built upon the last, creating an unbroken chain of military evolution that never stopped, never slowed, never stagnated." "And we thought we were meeting primitives," someone said softly. "No," the Pathek corrected. "We encountered a species that has been preparing for war since before our civilization learned to build starships. They simply had the patience and intelligence to hide it until the moment of contact." Earth. 24 hours after first contact, the broadcast went out on all frequencies, human and alien alike. Secretary General Maria Santos sat at a simple desk, Earth visible through the window behind her, a beautiful, blue-green world that had just proven it could bite back. "To the Confederation of Advanced Species," she began, her voice calm and measured. "24 hours ago you demanded our submission. You assumed our weakness. You believed your technology and unity gave you an unquestionable advantage." She paused, letting the images play beside her. Images of burning Confederation vessels, of human fighters in formation, of weapons platforms that shouldn't exist defending a planet that was supposed to be primitive. "You were wrong on every count. For 40 years since we first learned of your existence, humanity has prepared. We united in secret while appearing divided in public. We advanced our technology while pretending to stagnate. We built an entire defensive infrastructure while you watched and saw nothing." Her expression hardened. "You came to our home expecting submission. You received war, and you lost. However," and here her voice softened slightly, "humanity did not spend 40 years preparing merely to fight. We prepared to survive, to protect ourselves, to ensure that when we finally took our place among the stars it would be as equals, not subjects. The Confederation demanded we choose between submission and pacification. We choose neither. We choose sovereignty. We choose dignity. We choose to stand as equals among the galactic community." She leaned forward, speaking directly to the council now. "Your fleet is in retreat. You've seen what happens when you underestimate us. But we're not interested in prolonging this conflict. We're interested in recognition, not as primitives to be patronized, not as subjects to be governed, but as an independent species with the right to self-determination. You have 48 hours to respond. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Epilogue. The Council's choice 2 days later, the Galactic Council issued its response. It was not a demand. It was not a threat. It was an invitation, one extended to equals. Humanity would join the galactic community with full sovereignty. No annexation, no oversight, no conditions beyond those applied to all member species. The vote was unanimous. In the aftermath, as Earth's defense forces stood down and the wounded Confederation fleet limped home, analysts across the galaxy began studying humanity with new eyes. Who were these beings who had hidden such capability for so long? What other surprises did they have waiting? General Chen Wei, now 83 and finally able to reveal his life's work, sat in his Gobi bunker and watched the news broadcasts. 40 years of preparation, 40 years of secrets. It had worked. Admiral Okonkwo from Copernicus Prime on the Moon supervised the reconfiguration of weapons platforms back into their peaceful disguises, though everyone now knew what they really were. The galaxy would never underestimate Earth again. Dr. Tanaka, in her laboratory beneath Tokyo, studied the captured Confederation technology with eager eyes. Now that humanity was recognized as equals, they could begin open technological exchange. The learning would accelerate exponentially. Dr. Tanaka, in her laboratory beneath Tokyo, studied the captured Confederation technology with eager eyes. Now that humanity was recognized as equals, they could begin open technological exchange. The learning would accelerate exponentially, and Maria Santos, back in her UN office, looked up at the stars and smiled. Humanity had taken its first real step into the galaxy, not as children begging for acceptance, not as subjects bowing to authority, but as a species that had earned its place through preparation, unity, and an unyielding refusal to surrender. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never mistake silence for weakness, never confuse patience with pacifism, and never ever assume that a species that fights among itself hasn't learned something valuable about warfare. Humanity had been fighting for thousands of years. The Confederation had given them peace for thousands more. In that one crucial difference lay the entire story of their miscalculation. The aliens had forgotten how to fight. Humanity never forgot. They simply waited for the right moment to remind the galaxy. That moment had come, and the galaxy would never forget it.